All right, thank you guys for joining us today. This is our last parenting pit stops of the year, and today we're going to be talking about summer safety tips with summer quickly approaching as the year winds down. And today we have Alicia Green here, who is our nursing specialist here at Region 9. And so I'm going to let Alicia go ahead and take it away and share some of her summer safety tips.
All right, thank you. Yes, hello everyone. As she said, I am Alicia Green. I am the school nurse support specialist here at Region 9, and we're just going to kind of go over and just kind of hit a few things about some summer safety tips because, yes, it is quickly approaching and school will be out and kids will be into all activities. So this will just kind of hit some highlights on some things. So here is an agenda that just kind of goes through some of the topics that there again, we're just going to kind of hit some highlights, not going into anything too deep. If you do come across some questions, I feel free to reach out and I can direct you or answer anything that you might have questions about. So we'll talk about drowning and some heat exhaustion, some car safety. That's always a big one during the summertime. Talk about protecting yourself from the sun and some bug bite information, always the firework safety, and talk about staying hydrated, which will kind of go along with some of the heat exhaustion, and just to learn how to like play it safe in any activity that you do. Talk about life jacket wearing and smart bike riding. So all those topics can kind of be something that we know that it's there, but sometimes we may forget or there may be new information that's out there. So just so that we just kind of hit those highlights to know how to make sure that everyone's staying safe. So our first topic that we're going to kind of go over some of the water safety. So you can see from the flyer here where it talks about that drowning is the number one cause of injury-related death for children ages 1 to 4. And that's something that, could possibly be preventable, at least, with the safety, make sure that the safety measures are in place. And so one is to make sure that a child is never left alone in or around water. It doesn't matter how deep it is. You just never want them to be there alone. And you always want to have your child wear a Coast Guard approved life jacket. So it's something you want to measure, make sure that it fits them right, make sure that it's hitting and all the high points that it's supposed to hit so that it has a good fit and will do its job that it's intended to do. And you also, at the beginning of year, test your kids' skill level in swimming. If they're not sure, if they're not comfortable in swimming, enroll them in some swimming lessons. But you always want to kind of test out their skill level every year as well on how well that they can swim. Some other things that you want to kind of look at some safety tips while they're at the pool, because it doesn't necessarily, is specific to the lake, any kind of body of water. There again, you want to make sure that you assign an adult that's going to kind of be in charge for them, even if it's something that you kind of rotate through different people that are there. You want someone just to be there that is supervising the kids. And you don't want to allow them to dive in shallow water. That's something that a lot of times we don't think of, but accidents can happen so quickly. And them diving the wrong way in shallow water can definitely be a safety issue. You want to make sure that you have a phone nearby in case there is an incident in the water, then you're able to call 911 or get emergency help as quick as possible. You want to make sure that you keep non-pool toys like big wheels, wagons, tricycles, and things like that away from the pool. And remove any inflatable toys from the pool when they're not in use. And when they're not in use and they're just floating in the pool, sometimes that can obstruct the view for when somebody just looks by and there could be a child floating in the water and it not be seen because of an inflatable toy that is in the pool. And don't allow swimming until in an unlit pool after dark, excuse me. Let's see. And you do, even in a pool, you want to make sure that your kid is using a life jacket, especially if they're not a strong swimmer. So, let's kind of see some other things that we are looking at. So if you have older children, you want to teach the older children how to dial 911 in case of emergency. Maybe they're where they are the ones they're watching, and they just need to make sure that they know how to dial 911 as well. The swimming lessons can be for anyone that's over 6 months and older in most places. So you can do some research around your area and see if there's swimming lessons for as young as 6 months. And you want to make sure that you keep a first aid kit on hand for any minor injuries that you might encounter while they're swimming. And you can also look into like the American Red Cross, the American Heart Association. They offer different trainings and certifications. Obviously, your CPR skills, so that's something to always have at your certification in, so that if there is an issue or a breathing incident comes up, then you know how to rescue with the CPR. But they also have like lifeguarding classes and things like that to kind of help how to take care of things around the pool. And of course, you want to make sure that if you do have a pool, you want to keep all those chemicals out of the reach of children because that can, for sure cause some safety concerns there as well. And as you can see on the slide too, where it talks about how children can drown, quickly within seconds. Like a baby's face can become submerged underwater in a bathtub in the time it takes to walk to the hall closet and get a towel. Or a child can slip and fall into a swimming pool in the time it takes to answer a call or post to social media. As little as an inch of water can be deadly, especially for infants and toddlers. So there again, it doesn't really matter the amount of water. The kids shouldn't be left alone next to water. So the next one that we're going to kind of cover is kind of boat and lake. So it does kind of specify more to that specific versus switching from the pool area. So there's some boater safety courses that you can enroll in, and that kind of gives you some specific information about how to make sure that you have safety with the use of a boat. In summertime, many families will head to the lake to beat the heat and to cool off. So to keep your family safe and the injury prevention, these boating and lake safety rules for kids. A lot of my resources here I can kind of cover at the end as well, but a lot of my information comes from the Children's Health website. So if you want to look for more information, then you can definitely access those to get additional help on almost all of these topics. There again, even in a boat and on the lake, you want to make sure that you have a well-fitted life jacket. Let's see. And you don't want to drink alcohol while you're boating. It doesn't really matter the amount, but that's something that you still just want to make sure that you have all of those reactive sensories intact whenever you're using a boat. And you want to make sure that there is active supervision on why the kids are in and around the boat. And you only want to swim in designated swimming areas. And you don't want to dive because most of the time in the lake, we can't really see what's under the water. So you could be more in a more shallow point and not know it. And there could be, rocks, logs, sandbars, things like that under the water. So you don't really want to encourage diving out in the lake either. And one of the things, even if they're in a pool, but mostly if they're in a lake, they call what you want to do is like throw and don't go. So if you see someone struggling in the water, you want to find a flotation device and throw it to them, but you never want to jump in because they could pull you under as well. So just kind of make sure that you have a safety plan in place if something like that was to occur. All right, so our next topic is going to kind of be some signs of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So I have some diagrams here on the slide that you can kind of see some of the differences between what exactly is a heat exhaustion and what is heat stroke. And it can occur without proper hydration or rest. And so these will just kind of give you some things to recognize what might be occurring. Cases of heat stroke spike during the summer months, and this can be a life-threatening in children. Prior to heat stroke, kids often show milder symptoms such as heat cramps and heat exhaustion. Make sure children take water breaks and wear lightweight clothing when playing outside. So if you kind of know some of these symptoms to watch for, some things that might cause some of these things, then hopefully you can put some preventions in there so that they don't progress to like heat stroke and things like that. Let's see here. So some symptoms of heat exhaustion. The before a heat stroke symptoms appear, kids often will show signs and symptoms of like the heat exhaustion, and some of those may include like an elevated body temperature. Body temperature. They may be cool and clammy to the touch. So even though it's like hot outside and they maybe sweating, but when you touch it, like the skin still feels kind of cool and clammy. That clammy feeling is a little bit different than just sweat. They may actually show some goosebumps to where it looks like they're cold, but that's actually a symptom that they may be starting to experience some heat exhaustion. And they may faint, have some dizziness or weakness. So if there's ever any complaint of those while they're in the heat, then you want to make sure that you start looking into that and addressing that. They may have complaints of a headache. They may actually have increase in sweating. So you may see more profuse sweating to where it's just dripping off of like their face. Sometimes it'll be like on their arms and legs. It'll just start coming out wherever it can to try to cool their body down. They may show signs of increased thirst. They may, if they're younger ones, they may start showing some signs of irritability, muscle cramps, and nausea and are vomiting. Children may be at higher risk for heat exhaustion if they're overweight or obese. Taking certain medications. There are certain medications that will react differently in the sun. It may cause like a rash on the skin, may cause like some redness on the skin, or it may start early signs of heat exhaustion. So just kind of know if your kids are on any medication, what some of those symptoms would be or reactions that they would have in the sun. And sometimes they may have a sunburn or they're just sick. So just kind of knowing some of those things. It's important to treat heat exhaustion immediately as it can develop into heat stroke. So if your child shows symptoms of heat exhaustion, you want to make sure that you bring your child to a cool, shaded place, preferably in an air conditioner building or a vehicle if you have access to that. And you want to encourage them to drink cool fluids that contain salt. So things like your sports drink, any type of sports drink, electrolyte replacement, and those things are going to help replace those minerals that your body has been sweating out and losing. So that will kind of help cool the body down as well. You want to apply like a cool wet towel or sponge to the skin. That will kind of help bring the body temperature down as well to help them start feeling well. And if they're having muscle cramps or if they feel like their muscles are going to start to cramp, you can do like gentle stretches, even massages. You don't want to do anything too extreme, especially if they like have yell out with extreme pain or it causes more pain, then you don't want to push that, but just know that you can do that if you need to. If your child is unable to drink or seems to be losing alertness, you want to make sure that you seek medical attention immediately. They may be going more into the next phase and having more complications than what it appears like. Heat stroke is a severe type of heat illness that occurs when a child's body creates more heat than it can release. This results in a rapid increase in the body core temperature, and it can lead to brain damage or death if not promptly treated. So you want to make sure that you're definitely aware of the symptoms. And if you notice that it's in heat exhaustion, you want to treat those immediately so that it doesn't progress to heat stroke. But some signs of heat stroke in children may be like the body temperature that rises above 104. They may stop sweating. So you notice that they've been sweating, like they were playing, they started feeling bad, and then all of a sudden they stop sweating. That's a huge sign. So that's something that needs to seek your attention. They may have some confusion or disorientation. They may kind of get not sure where they are, not sure what they were doing, forget a play, things like that. Then that's something that needs your attention quickly as well. They may be flushed and they may be hot and their skin is dry because the sweating has stopped. They may actually lose consciousness. They may have nausea, vomiting, or even diarrhea. Their heart rate usually increases. So they may have a rapid heartbeat and breathing. So if their breathing pattern changes as well, that's usually a sign that you could be transitioning into a heat stroke. They'll have a severe headache. It's not just that initial, I think I have a headache, I have a little bit of a headache. It's more severe headache, that it's has some progression going on as well. And they can develop seizures and they'll have weakness or dizziness. A heat stroke is a medical emergency. And so you want to make sure that you're seeking medical attention and getting that additional help if you experience or notice any of those symptoms. But there again, you want to try to bring your child indoors, at least get them in the shade. And you can even start undressing them so that they can kind of get more airflow to their skin to try to help cool them down. Let's see, you want to avoid pushing like too many fluids if the consciousness is in and out, just because you don't want them choking or have some breathing difficulties if fluids are going in. If they're alert and able to drink, then you definitely want to continue with the fluids. But if they're not very alert, if they're seizing, confusions, things like that, then you don't want to be pushing any fluids on there. Babies can also have heat stroke. So a heat stroke in baby is rare, but it is very dangerous. So if they happen to stay outside too long in the hot weather, if they're riding a parked car, if they are sit in a parked car, we all know that the heat builds very quickly in a parked car. And so obviously you don't want to ever leave them in there. You want measures in place so that you don't leave them there, but they can have some signs of heat stroke as well. And some of their symptoms are like restlessness. They'll have that rapid breathing. So they'll start breathing really fast, maybe really shallow. Their breathing pattern changes and they may be very sleepy, like they're lethargic. They just won't respond. They won't smile. They won't laugh. They're just kind of look like they want to be asleep or they do go to sleep. Irritability, usually that's one that you know that there's something that's changing and going on with them if they're get very irritable or if they start vomiting. So you want to make sure that are aware of those symptoms and treating those if any of those occur. So you can take some simple steps to keep your children safe from heat exhaustion and heat stroke, but while still enjoying the outdoor activities. Sometimes you can pick the cooler time of day, and that can help things. You can try to take breaks and make sure that you're seeking shade. If you're out in the heat, the hottest part of the day, make sure you're taking frequent water breaks just to try to stay as cool as possible. Choose clothing that is loose fitting and light colored. Sometimes the moisture wicking rather than like heavy cotton because it's more breathable and kind of help prevent you from being getting too hot as well. Okay. Let's see. Our next topic is car safety, which we kind of touched on a little bit, but we can kind of go into a deeper here. Because according to the Safe Kids Worldwide, even on a relatively mild 80-degree day, the temperature inside a car can rise 19 degrees in 10 minutes. So since a child's body heats up 3 to 5 times faster than an adult's, the risk of heat stroke, brain damage, and death are much greater for children left in hot cars. So you want to make sure there again have a safety plan in place. You never want to leave them alone in a car. You want to even teach them not to play around cars. I know if they're, outside playing hide and seek, sometimes I think, oh, that's a great area, to go hide. Well, once they get in there and hide, they may have found such a good place to hide that it may take a while for anybody to find them. They may even fall asleep, not realizing that they're in a car, and then, it heats up really quickly and can be dangerous. So you want to make sure that teach your kids that it's not a play area, that the car is something that we just, use for traveling and not to play in or around. You want to make sure that you have access to 911 so that you can call 911 and have there again something in place so that you know that you want to look before you walk. And put something in your passenger seat or something in your back seat that you need to get just so that you have that little extra step to make sure that you know that you're going to check the area and look in the back before you lock your car or leave your car through there. Let's see if there's anything other topic I think that kind of touches our highlights for car safety. Let's see. So how can you protect your child from the sun? And you can see there that there's just, several different ways that you can make sure that you apply sunscreen or reapply sunscreen. Make sure, you can do your research. I know that there's a lot of different research out there on brands of sunscreen, ingredients in sunscreen. And so just, kind of do your comfort level and research on your sunscreen usage, but just know that there, sunscreen out there. And most of it does require for a reapplication every few hours. So just make sure that you're aware of that and keeping up with that as well. And there again, you want to seek shade and encourage your child to stay in the shade, especially during your peak sun hours. And your peak sun hours are like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that's when the sun's rays is the strongest. You can always wear like a hat and sunglasses. That kind of helps give you some protection from the sun and just kind of, limit the sun exposure during those peak hours again, if at all possible. If not, there again, you can kind of seek shade as it works in and out. And you could use some protective accessories, like if you're on the beach, on a boat, you can use like an umbrella and things like that to kind of help give you some sunshade, excuse me, as well. See if there's any lots that I'm missing from that. All right, move along here to bug bites. So, um, obviously, as we know, as the weather gets warmer, that not only the kids go out to play, that some of the creepy crawlies and the bugs, they always come out to kind of be a nuisance for us as well. So sometimes just being able to know that those are there, there's protections out there for those as well. But you can know how to identify some of the bug bites. So I kind of have them highlighted here on the presentation, but you can see that bees, their stings can cause immediate swelling, redness, and pain. You may even notice a stinger that is still in the skin, so you can find like a credit card, something flat that can kind of help you remove the stinger without injecting, more of the poison that is in the sting. A lot of times they'll like to hang out around flowers and shrubs, picnic areas, the beaches, especially like the honeybees, when we have, picnics and things like that on the beach. Fire ants, their bites immediately burn and cause pain, and you may notice like a cloudy fluid around the bite. It may look more kind of like a little pus filled, little pimple filled area. A lot of times that can indicate that there's a fire ant. Mosquito bites, I definitely are aware of all of those, and in this Texas heat, most of the time they are a very big nuisance. But they don't necessarily cause an immediate problem, but they may become red, swollen, and very itchy later. If you have any standing water, trying to remove any standing water, sometimes that helps to keep them from being too much around your area. Some kids can have like a little local reaction to mosquitoes, and even though they may have like a tiny little mosquito bite, the area around it will get very large and warm and swollen. So just be aware of that as well, that they may have just a local reaction to mosquito bites. So spiders, you may not really notice spiders bites at first, but if they experience a very painful red area filled with fluid, surrounded by a red or purple ring, it may even look like a target, then you do need to kind of check with your primary physician to kind of check that out. Sometimes spider bites can turn into infections, can turn into infections like cellulitis, and they need like antibiotics and things like that for them. So if you notice anything that kind of a target area from a bite, then you want to make sure that you check in with your doctor just to make sure there's not any follow-up care that needs to be taken care of. Ticks are often still attached whenever you find them. And so a lot of times you may not even know it for a while too. A lot of times they can like hide in the hairline and things like that. You want to remove them if you can. There's, a few different ways that you can remove them. They have special made, it looks like a little spoon with a V cut out in the end to where it just kind of slides under the tick, and it can be removed without squeezing, the head of the tick too much. But if you have to, you can use tweezers to kind of remove the tick. You just want to make sure that it doesn't, the head of the tick doesn't come off so that it stays embedded in the skin. So just make sure that you're giving that a good check over if you do have to pull a tick out. And make sure that you're cleaning the area really good with like soap and water. And might even hold on to it if you need to, if the tick needs to be sent off for disease testing or anything. There again, if they start seeing like a target sign around the tick bite, then that's something you want to check in with your doctor as well. Wasp, they're like bees as well. They have a stinger that may stay behind, and they'll have immediate pain and swelling. And so you just want to be aware that, wasp can be different than bees, and you may have like a reaction to either one of those as well. So just being aware of those as well. Some signs of allergic reaction to some bug bites. Allergic reactions to bug bites can be a medical emergency if they start having, any swelling on the face, if they get bit on the face and any part of the face is swelling, lips, tongue, any of that part, then that is definitely a medical emergency. They may need medication to help them breathe. The breathing pattern may change, so you want to seek medical attention as soon as possible. But they may also show some signs of confusion. Coughing is usually a sign that the airway is being affected, and so you want to make sure that you're getting a medical emergency with that. Difficulty breathing, the dizziness, fainting, headaches, all of those are signs that you want to make sure that you're seeking medical attention, that they're more than just a little local reaction. Hives, they may have just a couple of hives, or it may be like over the whole body. If they have hives over the whole body, then you definitely want to make sure that you're seeking medical attention. Their speech may start being slurred. They may even have trouble swallowing. They may start vomiting or even wheezing. So whenever they're talking or trying to breathe, you might hear like a whistle sound, like a vibration sound coming from their breathing. And so those are medical emergencies, and you want to make sure that you're seeking that medical emergency as quickly as possible. You can call 911 right away, so that they can be en route to where you are. Right. Let's see. All right, so some ways to kind of treat some insect stings and bites. If they're not experiencing an allergic reaction, you can usually treat those at home. There again, some of the symptoms that we already talked about. If there's like a target area around there, if the center of it starts looking like very black or purple, then that's something that you don't want to treat at home. You want to check in with your physician. But usually, if you don't have any of those symptoms, then you can just kind of treat those things at home. So to treat like the stings, there again, you want to make sure that the stinger is removed and not still in the skin. You can gently, rub there again with a flat area like a credit card across it to kind of pull that stinger out, and wash it with soap and water. You can apply some antibiotic cream if you have access to that, if that's something that you feel that it needs. And you can assist with some of the pain control, like if it's irritated and painful for them, then you can put some ice on the side. You usually want to try to not put ice directly on the skin. Sometimes that can be too cold for the skin and cause the skin to damage and kind of break down. So you might want to make sure that you have a barrier of like a towel or a paper towel, napkin, things like that, just to kind of put a barrier between the ice and the skin that is on there. You can elevate the limb if they're having some swelling. If it gets really itchy, then there's antihistamine lotions that you can apply. If none of that is working, or if you feel like they need some additional support, then you can use age-appropriate medications like acetaminophen and antihistamines. There again, you might check in with your doctor if you're needing to go to that step, just to make sure that there's not something more going on. But those are some options that are there. Most symptoms of bug bites, they usually pass within a few hours. However, there again, if the swelling or redness or the pain gets worse, if they start developing a fever, rash, fatigue, if they're really tired and sleepy all the time, that's different out of their typical routine, then you want to make sure that you're contacting your family doctor to let them know that they're having changes and that they experienced a bite or a sting in the previous days. So some ways that you can kind of prevent some insect bites is to not let them wear bright color clothing when they're outdoors. You can avoid some heavily scented, soaps, perfumes, lotions, things like that. Ensure that they're wearing shoes when they're playing outside. Cover arms and legs as much as possible. I know it's hot, but a lot of times they'll have certain materials that are thin, that they can kind of cover those areas. A lot of times during the higher time frames when those insects are out. And then the insect repellent, there again is kind of like your sunscreen. Everybody kind of has their own preference on that, so you can just kind of do your research and what comfort level you are with insect repellent. And you want to kind of teach your kid to calmly walk away from bugs, and to maybe teach them to not try to like always touch all the bugs, because they may not know if it stings or doesn't sting, if it could harm them or not. So just kind of teach them that the curiosity is good, just not necessarily go touching them and messing with the bugs too much without your knowledge and without you being there to supervise that. All right. Let's see, kind of move on there. Some playground safety tips. So I know that we like to take our kids to different playgrounds. Sometimes they'll be, in playgrounds that are around schools and parks and things like that. And so they are designed for kids, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily injury proof. And so you just want to kind of make sure that you're aware of some of the 5 playground safety rules. So you want to make sure that you choose the right playground equipment, excuse me, for your child's age and skills. A lot of times they'll have different levels of play equipment. So just make sure that they're being allowed to play on the age appropriate equipment for them so that their safety is in check. If possible, you can choose a playground that has like a safe surface of like wood chips, shredded rubber, that kind of lessens the injury risk. And you want to make sure that you dress your child properly. No necklaces, scarves, purses, clothing that could get hung around their neck or pose a hazard. So sometimes that's not something that we would necessarily think of. And so just kind of be aware of those as well. So you want to make sure that they're using the playground equipment properly, like never climb up backwards on the slides, make sure that they're going up and down the ladders correctly. You never want to jump out of swings or from the top of the slides. So just making sure that they're aware of those safety ways to make sure that they're using the equipment properly, just to kind of put that in safety measure in there so that they don't do those. Monkey bars can be risky. They're causing half of all serious playground falls. So just make sure that you're supervising your kids during monkey bars. I know as a school nurse that monkey bars was definitely something that responded until several broken arms. So monkey bars, I know that the kids love them and have fun, but they're definitely like a fall risk on there. So just make sure that you're supervising and aware when they're on the monkey bars. And it's also a good idea to teach your children to touch the equipment before climbing on it, especially, in our Texas heat, those slides can get blistering hot. And so just to kind of teach your kid, make sure you go and touch it a little bit to make sure that it's not too hot, that it's not going to burn their skin when they go to, grab the monkey bars or when they slide down the slide, just to kind of keep them aware so that they can kind of put some self protection modes in there as well to try to keep themselves safe when they're at a playground. In case they happen to be going to a playground with a friend or things like that too, then it's something that they're aware of that they need to check so that they don't get burned. And make sure that they always take their breaks there again, kind of getting back to your heat exhaustion, have access to water so that they're not getting too hot while they're out there enjoying the outside fun. Bike safety. Bike safety is another big one. So teaching your child how to ride a bike is often one of the many joyful moments of being a parent. But however, it's important to also teach your child how to be safe while riding. And so here are some of the tips that you can kind of see. Again, another flyer that I have on the presentation. It just kind of gives you some highlights on things to teach them and to be aware on what's going on. So on your bike helmet, some of the tips for that, you want to make sure that, if you're riding a bike with your child, you want to make sure that you're wearing a helmet so that you're giving them a great mentor so they can see you, they like to do what we do most of the time. And so just if they see you wear it, then they know that that's something that they're going to enjoy doing as well. You want to make sure that you find the perfect fit. Helmets come in different sizes, so it's important to make sure that you have the right size so that it fits, so that it can protect your head as it's designed to do. You want to look for a safety sticker. You can check inside the helmet. A lot of times they'll show that they've passed certain safety inspections, and you want to make sure that it has one of those so that you know that it's in good standing condition. And let your child be a part of that process to pick out their own helmet. If they get like a favorite color or a favorite design, then that will encourage them to want to make sure that they're wearing it whenever they're riding their bike as well. So some of the bike safety checklists, you want to make sure that your tires are inflated properly. Different bikes will have different tire pressures. Usually the edge of the tire will tell you the amount of pressure that it's supposed to be in. So you want to make sure that they are inflated properly. And you want to make sure that it fits the person that's riding it appropriately so that it's not too big or too small, that it could cause a safety hazard in there as well, just because the bike fit isn't correct. And you want to make sure that the seat is in the right position so that your height, and there again, it kind of goes along with the bike fitting right so that it doesn't cause any injuries when riding it. So some of the bike road safety tips that you want to teach your child is that you want to make sure that you teach them to stop before they merge into the roadway, especially from like a driveway or a sidewalk, a parking lot. They want to make sure that they look left and right and then left again to check for cars, or right again if they're crossing that traffic. So just kind of going over that, even though you think they may know, just kind of going over that with them just so that they can encourage that. Because sometimes, the more we say it, the more it kind of clicks with them. So just teaching them again, you'll make sure you're stopping and looking before you go, and that they need to obey all traffic signals and stop signs. So make sure that they know what those mean, and that how to use those as they are approaching those. And you want to teach your child to make eye contact with the driver. So if they're, at a stop sign or a red light or emerging onto a roadway, then teach them to make eye contact with the driver in the car, so that they know that they're there, and that it's safe to go ahead and merge or cross as the traffic signals indicate. Teach them how to use hand signals, so that they can kind of protect themselves as well, just a safety measure, so that cars that might be behind them or other bicyclists that might be behind them know what they're about to do. So teaching them hand signals while riding bike is always a good safety measure. And them wearing brightly colored clothes, even reflectors, or lights that are on the bicycle, just so that they can make sure that they have good visibility with other drivers and car drivers as well. That kind of puts an extra safety measure in there. And just kind of teach them too, like if they're riding on gravel, or if they have to cross gravel or uneven pavement, potholes, for them just to be aware of those and how that might affect their bicycle experience as they're driving. So just making them aware of those things as well. All right, we kind of move along to some summer activities. And some of these activities is what kind of helps with learning loss. Learning loss is something that does occur during the summer. It's just something that, they're not using it, so they kind of, set it aside. And so it's not necessarily they, forget it or necessarily, but it's something that they just kind of set aside. So just keeping them engaged so that they don't set it aside. And a lot of times that will just kind of help them once school starts. And these things too also kind of help with boredom, so that they're not, hollering at you, I'm bored, and things like that. That just kind of keeps things engaged. Um, Let's see. So there's a few different activities here. So one of them is like you're creating a summer schedule together. So if you, sit down, interact with them, or even you can give them like that assignment to kind of create a summer schedule, and then y'all kind of look through it and go through it together. But it just kind of helps your child make good use of their summer time, and it will kind of help vary their activities as well. Some of those things that they can put on their summer schedule is different camps that they know that are coming up, if they're signing up for, church camps, or, sports camps that they may be having coming up. Them just putting that on a schedule or on a calendar, that will just kind of help keep them engaged and help them keep track of when that might be coming up. Different chores, like if you assign them chores during the day, they can put their chores on their summer schedule, so that they know that that's, things that are expected of them, and they'll have like a check off list for that. Even if they're having little day trips, maybe they're, going to the park with someone, or having an outing with a family member or things like that, then just putting those, sometimes that will, there again, keep them engaged. Making library visits, they can, have reading time, and even going on vacation. A lot of times that will kind of help them. Putting those things on a schedule will help keep them engaged. Keep them reading. There again, let them go to the library and pick out a book that interests them. There's not like a specific book that they have to read for school. This is just enjoyment reading for them. Keeping them reading helps keep them engaged, and so that will kind of help keep that learning level up as well. You may have like summer reading programs. So if they, you have access to any of those, let them sign up for those, so that gives them an activity to do. It gives them something to put on a calendar, and it just kind of keeps them engaged as well. If they're old enough, you can have them consider volunteering. They can volunteer like at different animal shelters, charity groups, food banks. Sometimes libraries will take volunteers. So just letting them volunteer, it kind of keeps them engaged, it keeps them activated, and a lot of times that will kind of let them show where they can give back to the community, and it kind of helps keep them elevated as well. Um, let's see. You can do different family projects. If they like to cook, you can cook, and that will even involve like the use of math as you're, cooking. If they like to do DIY projects and build things, let them assist you with that so that they can kind of put some of those school subjects into practice. That would be reading instructions. If they're having to measure things, and that's kind of their math and their science involvement. So just letting them be involved in things like that, then that just kind of helps with the boredom, and kind of helps with the lessons, keeping that up as well. If you have an older student, they might consider looking at some college prep, and they may want to tutor, let them be a tutor to help other students as well, just kind of keep them engaged throughout the summer. You want to try to limit the screen activity, because that will help make sure that they aren't having any learning loss, and sometimes that will help with the boredom. So some of the screen-free activities, there again, you can kind of create a bucket list, ask them what's some things that you would like to do this summer, and let them kind of create a, reasonable bucket list. They can explore some new local parks that you might have around the area. You may have a new recipe, or you may have a family recipe that they might be interested in you passing down to them, or just trying out something new. So, a lot of times there may be a little bit of screen time, because I know a lot of people, like, we use different social medias to find new recipes, which is good because there's a bunch of them that are out there, but it's not something that they're on all the time. And it shows them how they can use different social media platforms to, try something new and experience something new as well. If they're old enough, they may pick like a summer job. Maybe it's babysitting, maybe it's lawn work. They may, like house sit or pet sit and things like that. So just getting them engaged in those a lot of times will help with those activities as well. They may get into daily journaling. That's something that you can, give them a suggestion of. They may start a new exercise program, especially like if they're in athletics or have activities like that, then they want to make sure that they keep that stamina up. And so they may start like a new exercise program, and that will help keep them engaged as well. There again, like if your kid is interested in babysitting, there are different babysitting courses that are offered. CPR is definitely another one that's good for those. So just doing your research, resources, checking into resources so that they have those extra credentials if they're interested in babysitting. And they may even kind of go old school, and they can write letters to different family members or friends and things like that that may not necessarily live in the area, and then they can reach out to them as well. So that's kind of going old school. Sometimes that intrigues them and is interesting for them. So that just kind of gives them something new to check into. Okay, let's see. Some of the things that we might would check in to an additional thing to kind of help with boredom. There may be some kind of like new hobby that they want to try. There again, the baking, cooking, that may be something that they haven't necessarily done, but it's something that they have a little bit of interest in. And so, that's something that a new hobby that they might can do. They may be into gardening, and they may want to experience something with flowers, or growing vegetables, so they can try that hobby into something new. They may want to try into like knitting or crocheting or sewing. Those are some different hobbies that they might would be interested in. Different paintings. They may want to kind of learn how to paint. So if they have any interest of any of these things, then encourage them to voice that with you so that you can encourage that, and get any supplies organized that might would need to have access to, so that they could try some of those new hobbies. Photographing, they may want to just go out in the backyard, or when you're at the playground, then that's something that they may want to kind of play around with, and taking photos and learning how to edit those and things like that. Let's see. They may want to kind of make an activity jar. And they can put some of those like new hobbies, they can put those into their activity jar, and then maybe draw like an activity out every day to where gives them something to do. So they may not have like a set schedule, and they may, know, oh, I want to do something, but I just don't know what to do today. And so if they have some of their favorite activities in a jar, then they can just go draw an activity out of the jar. And then that's something it's like, okay, well, yeah, I will go take a bike ride today, or I will try that new recipe out and do some baking, and things like that. So having them create an activity jar can kind of balance out some of that boredom as well. And it kind of keeps things to where they don't necessarily know for sure what they're going to do. You do want to make sure that they try to keep moving through the summer. If you have little kids, that you can blow bubbles and they can chase bubbles. A lot of times little kids just love doing that, and that keeps them active and keeps them moving. They can have dance parties. They can have dance offs like with their friends or with family members, doing things like we talked about, like the hide and seek. Just those, even though those are kind of fun activities, then children, it keeps them moving. So they don't necessarily know that they're moving and that they're increasing their activity or doing activity. They're just having fun. So they're getting something out of it as well. So just kind of doing some of those things. Even, like Simon says, some of the old school things. That kind of keeps them in motion. So a lot of times just keeping them moving and things like that, that will kind of help calm down some of the boredom as well. And tackling the projects together, kind of like we already talked about with the DIY stuff, including them, that gives you some of that, family time, and they kind of see your interest, which kind of piques their interest. And so just doing projects together a lot of times kind of helps with that boredom as well. And the last thing, if any of that stuff, just still doesn't really pique their interest, or they're just not in the mood for it that day, it's okay for some boredom. Don't feel like you need to feel every second of your child's day. Boredom is a good thing. It can help the children gain independence. It can improve their problem-solving skills and expand their creativity. So it's great to schedule activities, but it's also good child development to have them figure things out on their own and kind of deal with boredom on their own. So it's okay. You don't have to make sure that you're feeling all of those moments. These are just some kind of ideas out there, and just to kind of, give them suggestions if they are just every day, I'm bored. And so it just kind of gives some information for you out there. All right, now kind of changing topics there again, we're kind of go into some safe gun storage. So you can see from the pamphlets here that you want to, I was looking for exactly what I wanted to read here. But those are some different flyers, and you can see my resource there. So you can definitely go to those resources so that you can get more information if you need to, or if you need to check like gun locks and things like that. That gives you some great information for them there. So practicing safe gun storage protects your kids and prevents accidents. It keeps firearms out of the hands of criminals as well. So you want to make sure that you store firearms, and you want to make sure that you're storing them unloaded and secured by using like a trigger lock, or a biometric lock, a gun case, a strong box, gun cabinet or gun safe. You just want to make sure that you're storing your firearms. You also want to make sure that you're storing your ammunition, and you want to keep those locked up as well. And you want to restrict access. So keep others from getting access to your stored firearms 24/7. And that includes family, friends, children, or even like other visitors. Because we all know that accidents happen within seconds, and so just making sure that you have those things stored and locked up, sometimes that can kind of help any safety things that may be out there. Let's see what I have here. And you want to make sure that you're not that you're that you are talking to other parents, because even when your kids, like they may spend the night at a friend, and it's good practice to know that parent's information, or their comfort level, their thoughts, their feelings on gun storage. Ask them if they have access to guns. Make sure that they're locked and stored, because your child is going to be at their house, and so that's okay. Talk about it. Just kind of get that information out there. You're just protecting your kid and their kid by making sure that they are following safety concerns as well, so that they know that those are locked and out of reach. And talk to your kids. I mean, children are very curious, and so they'll have questions about guns. So whether it's a firearm in your home or if they go over to a friend's house, just make sure that you're talking safety with them too, and give them a plan on if their friend pulls out a gun. Give them a safety plan on what they need to do, even if it's a way that they reach out to you, a secret code that they have to reach you so that that they need some assistance, they need you to come pick them up, things like that. You just talk to your kids and be open with your kids about that as well. And you can see I have like a flyer for storage devices. So this just kind of goes through, it gives you like the name of them, kind of how they work, different ways to store and make sure that guns are in a safe location. So in United States, children and adolescents age 1 to 19, it's the leading cause of death right now for firearms related injuries. So you just want to make sure that we're educating ourselves, educating our children, educating our friends so that they are keeping them locked up and out of the children's reach. But if it happens to occur, then our children know what to do if they come in contact with that. So just make sure that you're talking to your kids about that. All right, and one last topic here we'll kind of just touch base over, just kind of highlight some of these flyers because I know that you can kind of read through the flyers. But this is some things that you may have one of your kids' friends come over and you may notice like some of these symptoms, or you may run across somebody in your business, or if you're out at a restaurant. So human trafficking awareness is just one of those things. I think that it's good information to know because you could be that connecting piece to help somebody that could be in that situation. But if you notice like a change in behavior, whether they have mood swings, whether they're withdrawing different than what they have been. They have like a change in their clothing style, even sometimes just a color changing clothing. They're getting like unexplained gifts. Those can kind of be some warning signs that are out there. They all of a sudden come in contact with kind of unexplained money. They have access to money and you're not really sure, how they got it. They're not necessarily have like a job lined up that would provide that. So just kind of be aware of that. If they all of a sudden are into like tattooing and branding or specific tattoo symbols, things like that, then just kind of check into that if you have some of your older kids. If they have multiple phones, a lot of times they may have a phone that they have contact with family, but then they have a different phone that their human trafficker might be using, or make sure that they have access to. So it's okay to ask questions if they have access to multiple phones or if they're using multiple phones. So just kind of knowing those symptoms. Children notice not only what you say, but how you say it. So the tone and words you use can make a big difference. So encourage your child to come to you even when they have made a mistake. Regular, caring conversations help build trust and keep communication open. And that is very big. We all make mistakes. And so your child just knowing that they can come to you, have your support. They know that their safety is your, number one goal, then just keeping that communication open so that even if they notice it in a friend, that they feel comfortable to you to say, hey, I'm not sure that my friend's not into something that could be harmful for her. And so just having that open communication is very, very good to have. This kind of gives you some different ways to respond if you do suspect trafficking. So you can just kind of, read through those. You always want to remain calm. You don't want to, cause like a big scene or anything like that. And believe them. It's not necessarily our place to investigate. Like if they're coming to give information to us, we want to believe that information and then connect them, excuse me, to the appropriate places to where we can get additional resources to them. You want to make sure that they have like a safe location there again with your kids. Even if, they go to a party, let them know that, this is not something that you may necessarily approve of, but, give them, if you get to that place, even though I didn't want you there, still please reach out to me, send me that secret text, that secret symbol, or just, call me and say, hey, come pick me up. Just keeping that open communication so that they know that you're there for them, that can be like a huge, difference in safety. So just making sure that you have those in place. All right. I was trying to think if there was anything else to kind of highlight. I will highlight again that, if you're interested in babysitting, even if you're not into the, babysitting, just like your CPR skills is definitely something that can help with any of these summer safety things. It's just, you never know when you may need it for a family member. You may be at a restaurant and it would come in. So just, seeking out and getting your CPR certification is always a good safety preventative. So I think that kind of finishes us up there. There is some of my contact information. So if you have questions, if there's something that I can provide more information to you, if there's a topic that you wish that I would have covered or highlighted and I didn't, please reach out to me and I can provide you some resources or give you some information, answer any follow-up questions that you might have from today's presentation. And things like that. So I appreciate your time and hopefully, I gave you some highlights to help you have a safe, fun summer.
All right, thank you so much, Alicia. That was definitely a great reminder of some good things, and I know I learned a lot and was reminded of a lot as a parent myself. And so, thank you guys for joining us today.
That's all right. Thank you.